Imagine stepping into a dimly lit studio.
Okay, setting the scene.
Yeah, there's a blank canvas resting on an easel, right? Maybe some like ambient jazz playing in the background.
Very moody.
Super moody. So you pick up a brush, you wait for that lightning bolt of divine inspiration to strike, and then you just sort of pour your soul onto the page.
Until something beautiful emerges.
Exactly. When most people hear the phrase graphic design, this is the exact, romantic fantasy that plays out in their heads.
Oh, absolutely.
It's treated like this pure, unadulterated, artistic expression, like you just move elements around a glowing computer screen until your personal taste dictates that it looks, well, pretty.
It is a profoundly comforting myth, honestly. We are so conditioned to view design as this purely aesthetic pursuit.
Right, like a binary.
Yeah, a binary state of existence where something either looks good or it just doesn't. We kind of idolize designers as these solitary, misunderstood geniuses.
The ones guided entirely by their impeccable taste.
Exactly. The assumption is that if you just have a good eye, you can design absolutely anything.
But the reality is a massive wake-up call. The second you step out of that romanticized studio and into the actual professional landscape of graphic design,
that canvas just gets ripped to shreds.
Literally ripped to shreds. You suddenly realize you aren't a painter at all. You're an engineer.
That's a great way to put it, an engineer.
Yeah. You are operating in a space that is rigorous, it's analytical, and heavily strategic.
True design is the absolute definition of visual problem solving.
Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive today.
And it's a big one.
It really is. Because whether you are a novice designer trying to figure out why your layouts feel, off, or an entrepreneur launching a brand.
Or just someone who is wildly curious about the hidden architecture of the visual world around you.
Right. We are about to fundamentally change how you see things. We are unpacking the core philosophies from Chapter 2 of the book, Design for Dummies.
A chapter appropriately titled, Developing Your Problem-Solving Skills.
If you thought graphic design was just about, picking out nice fonts and making colors pop, you are in for a serious paradigm shift today.
The foundational thesis we're exploring is a direct attack on that myth of the intuitive genius.
The intuition trap.
Yes. Novice designers, almost without fail, fall into the trap of relying heavily on their gut feelings and, their personal preferences.
But seasoned professionals don't do that.
Not at all. When you analyze how seasoned professionals actually work, you find a shocking statistic.
What is it?
A massive chunk of a project's timeline, often 15 to 30% of the entire budgeted time, is spent entirely on rigorous research.
Wait, really, 30%?
Up to 30%, yeah, and problem interrogation before a single pixel is ever manipulated on a screen.
I want to stop right there because that percentage is wild to me. 30% of a visual design project isn't visual at all.
It's just thinking.
Just thinking. Figuring out what you're actually aiming at. So let's unpack this intuition trap a bit more.
The premise here is built around the concept of visual language. We have to stop thinking of aesthetics as just decoration. Visuals are a language, complete with grammar, syntax, and cultural context. And just like any spoken language, it only works if the person on the receiving end actually speaks it.
That is the crucial disconnect for beginners, isn't it?
Absolutely. A designer's personal aesthetic, no matter how refined or trendy or objectively beautiful it might be, is never a trump card.
It doesn't guarantee success.
No, it does not automatically guarantee success. The danger lies in designing in a vacuum.
So just because you, the designer, think a minimalist monochromatic layout is the height of sophistication
doesn't mean it's the correct functional solution for, say, a chaotic, high-energy children's toy brand.
Right. If I'm hired to design a poster for a kindergartner, and I hand in something that looks exactly like a promo flyer for an underground indie band, I've completely failed.
Utterly failed. It doesn't matter if the typography is flawless.
Or if the grid is mathematically perfect. It's like serving artisan pureed baby food at a fraternity tailgate.
That is a visceral analogy.
But it works.
Right.
It doesn't matter how high quality the ingredients are. The audience is going to aggressively reject it because it fundamentally misunderstands who they are.
And what environment they are in and what they actually want to consume. The baby food at a tailgate is entirely accurate.
The environment dictates the validity of the solution.
Precisely. When a designer assumes that good design is universally understood, they strip away all the necessary nuances of communication.
It's like standing on stage speaking French to an audience that only speaks Japanese.
Exactly. And then getting frustrated when they don't applaud. Communication requires a shared vocabulary.
So the immediate hard truth for you listening right now is this. Your design solutions should absolutely not be for everyone.
The desire to make something universally appealing is a trap.
If you try to speak to everyone, your message becomes so diluted that you end up speaking to no one.
Which naturally forces us into the next phase of the process.
Right, because if we can't rely on our own subjective taste, and we explicitly cannot design for a universal audience, we're left with this massive blank space.
How do we actually figure out what the client needs to achieve?
And this is where the designer has to put on a detective hat, or maybe like a psychologist's hat.
You have to interrogate the problem.
And I don't mean shining a bright light in the client's face.
No.
But rather engaging in deep, probing, sometimes uncomfortable questioning. You have to define the exact goal, the boundaries of the scope, and the hidden requirements.
By asking the questions the client didn't even know they needed to answer. This is the exact moment where a designer transitions from being a passive order taker.
With her pair of hands operating a mouse.
Right, transitioning from that to an active strategic partner. Clients rarely come to you with the actual problem.
They come to you with what they think is the solution.
Yes.
There is a fantastic hypothetical scenario from the text that perfectly illustrates this dynamic. Let's call it the catering dilemma.
Oh, this is a classic example.
Imagine a client walks into your studio and says, I own a catering company, and I need a poster to advertise our business. Here's my logo, make it look good.
Very common request.
Now the amateur designer, eager to please and get to work, says, absolutely. Do you want serif or sans serif fonts? What's your favorite color? I'll have a draft by Tuesday.
The amateur is just fulfilling a transaction.
Exactly. But the seasoned professional hits the brakes. Instead of asking about colors, they ask, why do you specifically think a poster is the right move?
Have posters historically brought in high-paying clients for you?
What is the actual pain point in your business right now? When are you actually slow?
And this is where the magic happens. By gently but persistently asking why, the professional uncovers an entirely different reality beneath that surface request.
Through this interrogation, the designer discovers that the caterer doesn't just need more brand awareness in some generic sense.
The caterer's actual problem is that their business completely dies during specific off-peak months.
And a static poster hanging in a local coffee shop year-round does absolutely nothing to target that specific seasonal dip.
So the designer pivots the entire strategy.
They say, look, a poster is the wrong tool for this job. Instead, we need to design a highly targeted direct mail postcard campaign.
Mailed out to local corporate offices exactly 3 weeks before those historically dead months.
And we are going to include a highly aggressive, time-sensitive call to action like a discount on corporate lunches to specifically drive bookings when you are starving for revenue.
The beauty of this is that it transforms the relationship. From a purely business perspective, it is a massive win for everyone involved.
How so?
While the designer transitions from selling a one-off graphic to selling a comprehensive multi-piece strategic campaign, which is inherently more lucrative.
Right.
And the client, instead of wasting money on a vanity poster, gets a measurable return on investment because the design solution directly attacks their financial vulnerability.
Good design is fundamentally good business strategy.
Yeah.
But hold on, let me play devil's advocate here for a second. I can hear people listening to this and sweating at the idea of pushing back on a paying client.
It can be intimidating.
Isn't there a massive risk of just being incredibly annoying? If I sit down at a restaurant, look at the waiter, and order a cheeseburger.
And the waiter interrogates you.
Yeah, if the waiter immediately starts interrogating me about why I want a burger, asks about my cholesterol, and suggests I really need the grilled chicken salad instead, I'm getting up and leaving.
That's fair.
Doesn't questioning a client's explicit request create friction that could lose you the job?
It is a completely valid fear, but the restaurant analogy breaks down when you consider the stakes. You go to a restaurant to satisfy a known immediate craving.
Okay.
Clients come to a designer because they are experiencing a complex business pain point. Stagnant sales, a confusing brand identity, a new product launch that needs traction.
They are in pain.
Yes. They ask for a poster because a poster is the only vocabulary they have to express that pain. It's the only solution they know.
Ah, so they are self-diagnosing.
Precisely. If you go to a doctor and say, "My arm hurts, please give me a cast," a good doctor doesn't just wrap your arm in fiberglass because you asked for it.
They order an x-ray.
They interrogate the symptoms.
Yeah.
They might find out the pain is actually radiating from a pinched nerve in your neck, and a cast would be utterly useless.
Oh, okay.
By respectfully probing the client's request, you are acting as the specialist. You are diagnosing the underlying illness before prescribing the medication.
But far from annoying them, this level of interrogation builds immense trust.
When done with empathy and expertise, absolutely. It proves you care about their actual success, not just cashing their check.
Okay, that completely reframes it. You are stepping into the role of a consultant.
Yes.
So let's move forward. You've successfully interrogated the client. You have the x-ray in hand. You know exactly what the problem is and who the audience is.
The hard part is done, right?
Well, the immediate temptation, and I feel this adrenaline rush all the time, is to sprint to the computer. You want to fire up the software, open a new digital canvas, and start making things look real and polished.
But jumping straight to pixels is actually one of the most dangerous things you can do.
It's a trap.
It is a trap that destroys creativity. And this brings us to what should be the most sacred tool in a designer's arsenal.
The physical, messy, analog sketchbook.
Yes. Before a single pixel is generated, you desperately need a completely safe, low-stakes environment to attack the problem from every conceivable angle.
We really need to emphasize the utility here, because a sketchbook does so much heavy lifting behind the scenes.
It's not just a place for pretty doodles.
No, it acts as a chronological ledger of your raw thoughts. It's where you take frantic notes during that initial client interrogation.
And critically, in a world where everything is digital and easily copied, the physical sketchbook is your undeniable proof of originality.
Oh, that's a great point.
If a client or a competitor ever looks at your final design and asks, "Did you just rip this off an online template?" You have the entire evolutionary fossil record of that idea documented right there.
In ink and graphite.
It is absolute proof of work.
But beyond the legal and organizational benefits, the sketchbook serves a profound psychological purpose, doesn't it?
It does. The digital screen is inherently intimidating because it demands perfection.
Right. When you draw a vector line on a computer, it is perfectly straight, crisp, and mathematically flawless.
And that perfection creates a subconscious pressure to make the idea perfect immediately. A sketchbook removes that pressure entirely.
It is a private laboratory where you are explicitly allowed to be sloppy.
To draw terrible ideas, to wander down intellectual dead ends without the anxiety of the undo button.
And it is a private laboratory.
Wait.
Which is vital, because showing a client those messy, half-baked ideas leads to a horrific phenomenon.
Ah, yes, Frankensteining.
The graphic design monstrosity.
It is the bane of every professional's existence.
Frankensteining is exactly what it sounds like. It happens when a designer brings their sketchbook to a meeting, or shows a client 4 or 5 wildly different, unfinished concepts, hoping for direction.
Which is always a mistake.
Right, because the client, who usually doesn't understand visual cohesion, looks at the options and says, "Oh, I love the bold, aggressive typography from concept A."
But let's stitch it together with the soft, pastel, watercolor background from concept B.
And you know what? Let's cram it all into the circular layout from concept C.
And what results is a disjointed, hideous corpse of a design that communicates absolutely nothing.
Because its internal logic is completely fractured. It's a monster that pleases no one and fails at its core objective.
Which is exactly why the golden rule is to keep the sketchbook hidden.
You do the messy experimentation in private.
And you only present the client with fully synthesized, polished, cohesive solutions where all the elements actually belong together.
However, there is a highly strategic exception to this rule, right?
Yes, there is. Imagine you have done the work. You present 3 gorgeous, polished concepts to the client.
And they all fall flat.
They all fall flat. The client is staring at them, shaking their head, and you can feel the project slipping away.
That's the worst feeling.
In this specific scenario, the sketchbook becomes your strategic parachute.
Wait, really? You open the vault.
You open the vault, but selectively. You pull out the sketchbook and say, okay, none of these polish routes are resonating. Let's look at the raw data.
Wow.
Here are 5 completely divergent, highly experimental directions I explored early on. They're rough, but look past the sketch. Do any of these underlying concepts spark a gut reaction?
That's brilliant, because they aren't looking at polish. They are forced to react to the raw, structural idea.
Exactly. It allows you to rapidly gauge their emotional reaction to radically different paths without having wasted 40 hours rendering those paths perfectly on a computer.
It is a diagnostic tool to save massive amounts of time when a hard pivot is required.
It really is.
So, your sketchbook is open. The blank page is staring at you, practically mocking your lack of ideas. How do you fill those pages?
Where do you source the raw material?
Right, without just resorting to copying what is already out there in the world.
This requires a fundamental shift in how we consume visual culture. We have to clearly delineate between gathering inspiration and finding precedent.
Those are two very different things.
Completely different cognitive exercises, and mixing them up is what leads to derivative, boring design.
Let's break down inspiration first, because there's a specific, brilliant example about this from the text.
The BBQ sauce.
Yes. Imagine you've been hired to design the packaging and label for a brand new premium BBQ sauce.
A fun project.
Maybe you're doing a deep dive into comparing the tangy, vinegar-based sauces of North Carolina against the heavy, mustard-based styles of South Carolina.
The absolute worst, most counterproductive thing you can do for inspiration is to go to the grocery store and stare at the wall of existing BBQ sauces.
If you look at your direct competitors for inspiration, you will inevitably create a clone.
Your brain will absorb the visual tropes of the category, and you will end up designing yet another bottle featuring a graphic of a flaming grill
With a rustic wooden background.
and a bold, distressed Western font.
You will blend perfectly into the background noise of the aisle. You become invisible.
So instead, the strategy is to look entirely outside of your product category.
If you want this BBQ sauce to feel premium, expensive, and artisanal, you shouldn't look at sauces at all.
Where should you look?
You should go look at top-shelf Texas whiskey and high-end bourbon packaging.
Ah, yes, white bourbon.
Because the visual language of high-end spirits has spent decades perfecting the exact psychological communication of boutique, handcrafted, and high quality.
That makes so much sense.
Right, you start deconstructing the whiskey bottle. You look at the heavy, thick base of the glass that implies weight and value.
You look at the textured, uncoated paper of the label that feels raw and organic under the thumb.
You look at the subtle, embossed typography, the copper foil stamping, the actual physical wax seal dripping down the neck.
And if you take those exact visual cues, the language of premium bourbon, and transplant them into the world of BBQ sauce, you instantly elevate your product.
You completely disrupt the BBQ aisle because your product is speaking a premium language that none of the competitors are using.
That is the essence of gathering inspiration. It is inherently broad, it is aggressively cross-disciplinary, and it is entirely focused on capturing an emotional resonance.
Or a conceptual vibe. Finding precedent, on the other hand, is much more literal, structural, and direct exercise.
How does precedent differ from just copying then?
Well, precedent is about understanding the unwritten rules of the physical or digital space you are about to occupy.
If you are designing a label for a standard 12-ounce beer bottle, or you are tasked with designing the user interface for a new mobile banking app, you absolutely must study the successful competitors in your exact space.
Not to steal their aesthetic choices, but to understand the functional architecture.
Right, because you need to know where the guardrails are.
Exactly. You study precedent to answer strict functional questions.
Like, what are the standard physical dimensions for a label that needs to wrap around a bottle with this specific curvature without wrinkling?
Or on the mobile app, how many pixels wide do the navigation buttons need to be so that a human thumb can comfortably tap them while walking down the street?
Without accidentally hitting the transfer button instead.
Exactly. You aren't copying their colors or their fonts, you are copying their ergonomic geometry.
So precedent gives you the rigid, functional scaffolding, and inspiration provides the wild, cross-disciplinary flavor that you pour into that scaffolding.
Precisely. There is a profound quote from Albert Einstein that anchors this entire philosophy. You cannot solve a problem with the same mind that created it.
If you only ever study your direct competitors, your mind becomes trapped in the exact same paradigm they are trapped in.
The ultimate goal of graphic design is synthesis.
You take the rigid functional requirements you extracted from precedent, and you collide them with the emotive, cross-pollinated ideas you gathered from broad inspiration.
And the resulting explosion is a cohesive, totally unique solution. It's not copyright infringement.
It's structural synthesis.
Which means as a designer, you have to be a relentless, omnivorous observer of the entire world, not just design blogs.
Absolutely.
But I want to push this concept of looking outside your field even further. If looking at whiskey to design BBQ sauce is good, How far out can we go?
Pretty far.
What happens when we completely abandon human invention and look at billions of years of non-human R&D?
You are entering the realm of biomimicry, and it is arguably the most fascinating frontier in modern design and engineering.
Biomimicry. It's the practice of studying the strategies, structures, and systems found in nature and mimicking them to solve complex human design challenges.
Think about it from a purely pragmatic standpoint. Nature has had roughly 3.8 billion years of ruthless evolutionary trial and error
To solve incredibly complex problems regarding structural integrity, energy efficiency, temperature regulation.
Every organism alive today is the ultimate winning prototype of an unimaginably long design process. Why wouldn't human designers tap into that database?
To bring this down to earth, let's look at a classic, almost cliche college physics assignment.
The egg drop.
The egg drop. We've all seen some version of this. The parameters are brutal. You are handed a fragile raw egg. You must drop it from a 10-foot balcony onto solid concrete without it cracking.
But your budget and materials are severely constrained.
You are only allowed to use a handful of plastic soda straws, a few wooden popsicle sticks, and some rubber bands.
It is fundamentally a problem of physics, packaging, and kinetic energy distribution.
How do you decelerate a highly fragile payload and dissipate the shock wave of a violent impact using materials that have almost zero inherent padding?
Now, the amateur approach is just to build a thick, chaotic cage of straws and hope for the best.
Which never works.
No. But a designer practicing biomimicry stops and asks, what in nature has a similar problem?
And they look at a common, everyday weed. Dandelion.
The dandelion is an absolute marvel of structural engineering.
It faces a massive logistical challenge, doesn't it?
It does. It needs to distribute its fragile seeds over the widest possible geographic area to ensure survival. But it has no propulsion system of its own. It relies entirely on the wind.
And the mechanism it uses is breathtaking. If you put a dandelion seed under a microscope, you see that the actual seed is tethered to an incredibly thin, lightweight central tube.
And extending from the top of that tube are roughly 100 microscopic feathery bristles.
These bristles fan out to form a tiny, highly efficient parachute.
But here's the truly brilliant part. It's not a static structure. The dandelion parachute is environmentally responsive.
Wait, really? The bristles move?
Yes, the bristles actually act like actuators. When the air is heavy and humid, which means the wind is likely weak and the seed would just drop straight to the ground, the parachute physically closes up.
Anchoring the seed to the flower.
Exactly. But when the air dries out and a strong breeze picks up, the parachute blooms open, maximizing its surface area to catch the wind.
Allowing the seed to achieve liftoff and glide softly for miles.
Yes.
Okay, I am entirely geeking out on the biology here. It's incredible. But let me bring this back to the novice designer sitting in their studio.
How do you use it?
Right. How does knowing about a microscopic weed parachute actually help me? I can't organically grow a giant dandelion to catch my raw egg.
Not with popsicle sticks.
How do I bridge the gap between biological observation and a pile of straws?
This is where the crucial skill of abstraction comes into play. You do not attempt a literal one-to-one copy of the dandelion. That's impossible.
Instead, you extract the underlying mechanical principle.
You look at nature and you ask, what is the mechanism of action? You observe how birds weave layered tensile structures to protect fragile eggs in a nest.
Or you observe how birds use microscopic hooks to stick to a dog's fur, which, by the way, is exactly how a Swiss engineer invented Velcro.
Right. For the egg drop, you abstract the dandelion's core mechanism, creating massive aerodynamic drag by utilizing many small, lightweight, high surface area elements.
You then look at your straws and ask, how can I arrange these rigid plastic tubes to mimic the aerodynamic behavior of those hairy bristles?
How can I create a wide, outward-facing canopy that forces the air to slow the descent, rather than just building a heavy box that plummets?
You are translating an elegant biological concept into a crude, manageable, mechanical solution.
You are extracting the physics lesson from the biology lesson and applying it to a human design problem.
That is an incredibly powerful mental model.
Yeah.
But here's the catch.
There's always a catch.
We've looked at the physics of dandelions, we've synthesized bourbon bottles, we've sketched brilliant concepts.
Yes.
But all of this rigorous intellectual design work happens in a vacuum until a human being actually interacts with it.
Absolutely.
And if the person looking at your final product doesn't fundamentally get it, then all that clever biomimicry was a total waste of time.
Which is why the design process must inevitably pivot outward, away from the object and toward the observer.
You have to aggressively dial in your target audience. You have to map their minds.
We're talking about gathering highly specific demographics.
And I don't just mean basic census data. I mean understanding their age, their exact education level, their deeply held cultural beliefs.
The specific media echo chambers where they get their information.
And this isn't just a cynical marketing exercise to sell them things. It's a vital communication protocol to avoid catastrophic cultural friction and accidental alienation.
It is fundamentally about establishing trust through a shared visual vocabulary.
Think about the psychology of a dinner party.
Okay.
Imagine you walk into a room full of strangers, and you want to approach someone to strike up a conversation. Subconsciously, if you want them to feel safe and receptive to you, you will start to mirror them.
If they are leaning casually against a wall, speaking softly, you aren't going to run up, scream in their face, and aggressively wave your arm.
No, you match their posture. You match their energy level. This mirroring signals empathy. It signals that you belong to the same tribe.
Graphic design must mirror the audience's visual preferences in the exact same psychological way.
It must feel native to them.
If your target audience is a group of conservative, highly formal investment bankers, your design aesthetic cannot be chaotic, neon, and asymmetrical.
They will subconsciously reject the message because the visual body language is screaming at them.
This is the entire reason professional designers build personas.
These intensely detailed, fictionalized character profiles that represent the ideal end user.
You name them, you write down their hobbies, their fears, their favorite brands. The persona keeps your ego in check.
You realize very quickly that you are not designing this brochure for yourself. You are designing it specifically for Persona A, and Persona A hates neon green.
To connect this to a broader economic philosophy, we can contrast the operational models of McDonald's and a high-end local chef.
Oh, I love this analogy.
McDonald's is, objectively, a marvel of global supply chain logistics.
Yeah.
Their entire business model is predicated on absolute uniformity, massive scale, and rigid control.
They produce billions of identical, hyper-processed burgers.
Whether you walk into a franchise in downtown Tokyo or a rest stop in rural Texas, you know with absolute certainty exactly what that burger is going to taste like.
Down to the exact ratio of ketchup to mustard.
It is incredibly safe. It is the definition of a mass-produced solution. But is a McDonald's burger ever the absolute best culinary experience of your life?
Obviously not. It's fuel, not art.
Exactly. Because a mass-produced, universal solution inherently cannot cater to the hyper-specific, nuanced tastes of an individual palate.
A truly great graphic designer should never operate like a fast food franchise.
They should operate exactly like the meticulous local chef.
Explain the chef mentality.
The local chef survives by intimately knowing their specific neighborhood patrons. They wake up early, they go to the local farmer's market, and they see exactly what produce is perfectly ripe that specific morning.
They understand the seasonal cravings of the people walking through their door.
They tailor their menu, their seasoning, and their presentation to the exact cultural and culinary expectations of their specific audience.
They are creating a bespoke, hyper-relevant experience.
Design must function the same way. It cannot be a bland, one-size-fits-all fast food meal pushed out to the masses.
It must be a carefully sourced, perfectly seasoned visual dish that speaks directly to the specific cravings and anxieties of the exact audience sitting across from it.
That culinary analogy is flawless, isn't it?
It really is. So, you're the chef. You know exactly what your specific patrons want to eat. You've sourced your ingredients from nature and cross-disciplinary inspiration.
You are ready to start cooking.
But before you turn on the stoves, there's a massive operational warning we have to discuss.
If you don't draw a very strict map of the kitchen before you start, you are going to end up trapped in the soul-crushing, unprofitable abyss of just one more thing.
Scope creep.
The project scope. This is the exact intersection where the artistic passion of design brutally collides with the cold realities of business.
I know designers who have completely burned out over this. There's a deeply painful anecdote in the text about learning this the hard way.
The 5-page website.
Yes. Imagine a young designer is hired by a local business to build a simple 5-page informational website. Because the designer is eager and maybe a bit naive, they never formally establish a contract that explicitly defines where the job ends.
They don't define the scope.
So they present the website, and the client says, "This looks great, But hey, can we just change the font on the homepage and maybe swap out these 3 photos?
Which seems harmless enough. It's just a quick tweet.
Right, so the designer says yes. A week later, the client emails again. Hey, my partner looked at it. Can we actually add a completely new page detailing our company history and maybe integrate a live Twitter feed?
Because the designer wants the client to be thrilled. They sigh and say yes.
This goes on for months. It's a virus. The process continues to bloat until the client casually drops a bomb.
You know what? We've decided we want to sell our merchandise online. Can you just quickly add a fully functional, secure e-commerce storefront to the site?
At which point, the designer is bankrupt of time and energy.
Adding an e-commerce backend requires complex database coding, security protocols, and massive testing.
None of which was factored into the original quote for a simple brochure site.
The designer is essentially working for free.
The profound lesson here is that you can never use client happiness as the metric for project completion.
Happiness is an emotional, constantly moving target. You will never hit it.
You must establish a rigid, ironclad contract up front that explicitly outlines exactly what the deliverables are. Say, 3 logo concepts and 2 rounds of revisions.
And critically, it must outline what the deliverables are not. If it's not in the scope, it requires a new invoice.
And defining these boundaries isn't merely a defensive tactic to protect your hourly rate.
It is also an offensive, strategic move that requires taking a macro view of the entire competitive landscape.
Let's zoom out. What does this macro view actually look like? If I'm designing a logo, why do I care what a company 3 states over is doing?
Because you cannot define the boundaries of your own solution until you deeply understand the boundaries your competitors have already built.
A robust competitor analysis is non-negotiable.
You are mapping the battlefield. You have to analyze the industry trends. You have to identify every major competitor's unique selling proposition.
Are they positioning themselves as the budget-friendly, high-volume option?
Are they leaning heavily into an organic, eco-friendly luxury aesthetic? By meticulously mapping out where everyone else is standing, you reveal the negative space.
You find the gap in the market.
The unserved demographic or the unarticulated promise where your client can plant their flag and truly stand out.
Furthermore, you dive into audience perception. You read the Google reviews and social media comments of your competitors.
What are the customers constantly complaining about?
If every review says, great product, but the customer service is incredibly confusing, you now have a strategic directive.
Design your client's interface or branding to scream clarity, transparency, and effortless support.
And when you, as a designer, walk into a client presentation and lead not with a color palette, but with a macro analysis of their entire industry's vulnerabilities,
You instantly elevate your perceived value.
you aren't just an artist handing over a pretty graphic. You are a strategic weapon handing over a market intelligence report.
That builds an unshakable level of trust. You transition from a vendor to an indispensable partner.
Okay, so we know how to map out what the competition is doing, but how do we know what the culture is doing?
That's a different beast.
How does a designer spot the cresting wave of a cultural trend and surf it without just becoming a pathetic derivative copycat of whatever is popular on social media today?
Trend spotting is a nuanced discipline. It requires keeping a constant finger on the pulse of the creative industry.
But interacting with that pulse dynamically, rather than just passively absorbing it.
There is an absolutely legendary story about active trend engagement from the text.
We have to talk about the Smoothie Wolf incident because it is the ultimate masterclass in creative hustle.
It is a phenomenal case study in audacity.
Okay, picture this. A young student designer is scrolling through Twitter and they see a tweet from Diplo, the globally famous DJ and music producer. Diplo is known for being a bit chaotic online, and he tweets out a joke. He says he's starting a fake company called Smoothie Wolf, and he challenges his millions of followers to design a logo for it.
Now, 99% of people laugh, hit like, and keep scrolling.
But this student designer sees a massive high-leverage opportunity. They drop everything, design a genuinely great, highly trendy logo concept, and tweet it back at Diplo.
But they don't stop there.
No, they tweet, "I'm coming to your show in my city tomorrow. Can I bring you physical shirts with this logo on it?"
Which is an incredible, almost absurd escalation of the interaction.
And surprisingly, Diplo's account responds and says yes.
I still can't believe that worked.
Right. So the student goes into full panic mode. They get the design screen printed onto a batch of t-shirts overnight. The next day, they go to the concert venue hours early.
They ignore the main entrance.
They find the heavily guarded backstage loading door and knock. A massive bouncer opens the door, looks at this kid, and the kid just hands over the stack of shirts and says, "Diplo asked for these."
And the bouncer just takes them.
The bouncer vanishes. 10 minutes later, the door opens again, and the bouncer hands the student all-access VIP passes.
Wow.
The student gets to watch the show from the wings, and right in the middle of the set, Diplo rips off his jacket to reveal he is wearing the student's custom Smoothie Wolf design on stage in front of thousands of people.
He even pulls the kid out from the wings to hype the crowd.
The lesson here is paramount. Trends are not a spectator sport.
You cannot passively watch culture happen. You have to actively engage with industry leaders, leverage the platforms available to you, and forcefully throw your hat into the ring.
That proactive, fearless approach is how careers are launched.
But for the more analytical, day-to-day rhythm of a designer's life, there are incredibly powerful data tools available to track these cultural shifts before they become mainstream.
Let's break down the actual dashboard of visual culture. What tools should a designer be monitoring?
The first and most empirical is Google Trends. This isn't just about design. It tracks raw, literal human curiosity.
You can analyze search requests over a rolling 7-day period to see exactly what concepts, products, or aesthetics are spiking in the collective consciousness.
It strips away opinion and gives you behavioral data. Second is Pinterest Trends. Pinterest is fundamentally an aspirational visual platform.
Analyzing what demographics are saving and pinning to their boards gives you a deep, predictive insight into emerging aesthetic desires.
Whether it's a surge in mid-century modern furniture or brutalist web design.
Then you have the specialized networks for the design industry itself, like Behance.
Behance is a massive, Adobe-backed network where top-tier professionals globally publish their polished case studies. Browsing Behance tells you what the elite tier of the industry considers cutting-edge today.
Finally, there is Dribbble, which functions more like a high-speed social network for UI and graphic artists.
It's where designers post raw snippets, micro-interactions, and works in progress. It is an incredible engine for gathering rapid-fire inspiration.
And seeing the granular evolution of digital trends in real time. But I have to throw a massive red flag on the play here. Aren't trends, by their very definition, toxic to longevity?
They certainly can be.
If I design a corporate identity based entirely on the neon gradients that are currently trending on Dribbble today, isn't that logo going to look incredibly dated, almost embarrassing, in 36 months?
It is a massive risk. Chasing a trend exactly as it exists is a guaranteed path to obsolescence. The solution, which is brilliantly articulated by top designers, is to adopt what I call the jazz musician paradigm.
I love this. Explain the jazz musician approach.
Think about how a master jazz musician operates. They are handed a piece of standard sheet music, a known melody, which in our analogy is the current design trend.
A classical musician will play every note exactly as written. They copy the trend perfectly.
But a jazz musician takes that familiar melody and begins to riff on it. They deconstruct it.
They bend the timing, they invert the chords, they inject their own unique improvisational voice into the structure.
They respect the underlying form, but they mutate it. As a designer, you must observe the trending aesthetic, say, a resurgence in 90s anti-design, but you don't just copy it.
Iterate on
You filter it through your own visual voice and the specific needs of your client, creating something that is aware of the current culture, but not enslaved by it.
It's about participating in the cultural conversation without just mindlessly repeating the last sentence spoken.
Exactly. And to master this, you have to look past the surface of a trend and understand the causality behind it. Why did this trend emerge right now?
it. Often you'll find that hardware and technology actually dictate the aesthetic.
For instance, a few years ago, there was a sudden massive explosion of highly polished, hand-drawn script typography and commercial design.
Why? It wasn't random.
It directly correlated with the release and widespread adoption of the iPad Pro, the Apple Pencil, and the Procreate software.
The new hardware removed the friction of drawing digitally, so the aesthetic trend followed the path of least technological resistance.
The tool literally reshaped the culture.
Profoundly. Pop culture is the other massive catalyst. When the film Blade Runner 2049 hit theaters with its stunning cinematography, it almost single-handedly triggered a massive resurgence in retrofuturism within graphic and UI design.
Suddenly, everything featured stark brutalist typography, neon pinks and cyans, and synthwave aesthetics.
Or consider how the film Scott Pilgrim vs. the World legitimized a specific, chaotic, kinetic comic book aesthetic in mainstream motion graphics.
If you can identify the technological or cultural catalyst of a trend, you can predict its trajectory and use it much more intelligently.
This exploration of why we like what we like leads us directly into the deep subconscious psychology of design elements.
Because once you know the trend and you know your audience, you still have to understand how the human brain biologically processes the specific colors and shapes you put in front of it.
Let's start with the psychology of color.
Color psychology is the absolute bedrock of visual communication. It bypasses the logical brain and speaks directly to the emotional nervous system.
Let's look at a hyper-specific example, the healthcare industry.
If you drive down the street and look at the logos for hospitals, pharmaceutical conglomerates, physical therapy clinics, and dental offices, you will notice a staggering lack of diversity.
Almost every single one of them utilizes the color blue.
It is incredibly pervasive, and it is a calculated psychological manipulation.
Right. Blue was not chosen because the CEO likes it. Blue inherently communicates deep serenity, unwavering trust, structural stability, and clinical healing.
Studies even suggest that viewing cool blues can slightly lower a person's heart rate.
If you are operating a high-stress, high-stakes environment like a hospital, where people arrive terrified and in pain, blue is the perfect psychological anesthetic.
But this creates a massive strategic dilemma for a designer.
If literally every single one of your client's competitors is wrapped in a blanket of blue, how does your client ever stand out?
If a disruptive new wellness clinic hires you and says, "We want to look radically different from the old, boring hospitals," you can't just rebel by making their logo neon orange.
Doing so would be professional malpractice. Neon orange, in a medical context, would induce immediate subconscious panic in the patient.
Psychologically, orange and red communicate severe danger, toxic warnings, or at best, cheap, high-speed fast food.
It violently violates the psychological baseline of trust required in healthcare.
Exactly. So you are trapped between the need to stand out and the requirement to feel safe. How do you solve it?
The strategy is to utilize an analogous color. You open up the color wheel, you locate that standard boring medical blue, and instead of jumping across the wheel to the opposites, you just move slightly to the left or right.
You choose a hue that is directly adjacent to blue, like a soothing seafoam green or a deep regal purple.
Exactly. By choosing an analogous color, you preserve the psychological baseline. Green and purple are still cool colors. They still project safety, calm, and clinical competence.
But visually, they create enough contrast to completely separate your client's brand from the endless sea of identical blue hospital logos.
It is a highly calculated surgical differentiation.
It is a masterclass in psychological nuance. And this level of subconscious engineering extends far beyond color. It applies with equal force to the very geometry of the shapes you use.
Let's dive into the psychology of shapes, because this blew my mind. Before you even draw a line, you are choosing a subconscious vocabulary.
Let's frame this with a hypothetical. You are tasked with designing the entire visual identity for an innovative startup solar panel manufacturing company.
Let's analyze what the foundational shapes inherently say to the human brain. Let's start with the most basic: squares and rectangles.
Squares and rectangles are the visual representation of gravity in architecture. They communicate absolute order, unwavering stability, and reliability.
They are grounded and secure.
The inherent risk, however, is that they can easily be perceived by the audience as excessively rigid, bureaucratic, or just plain boring.
So fantastic for a 200-year-old bank, but perhaps entirely the wrong energy for an agile, disruptive green energy tech startup.
What about circles?
The circle has no beginning and no end. Psychologically, it represents universal unity, eternity, and holistic completeness.
It is a very harmonious, inclusive, and friendly shape. However, much like the square, a perfect circle can sometimes lack dynamic, forward-moving excitement. It feels static in its perfection.
Now, triangles. These are where things get incredibly interesting.
Triangles are the most dynamic, highly charged geometry available, but their meaning changes entirely based on their orientation.
A triangle resting solidly on its broad base and pointing upward communicates progression, peak performance, and rising energy. It is aspirational.
But if you take that exact same triangle and invert it, balancing it precariously on its point, it suddenly communicates severe tension, conflict, instability, and impending falling action.
In the context of our solar panel startup, a forward-leaning triangle could be an exceptional tool to visualize the aggressive progression of clean solar energy overtaking archaic, dying petroleum methods. It implies kinetic movement.
What about spirals? We see these a lot in tech.
Spirals are deeply rooted in nature. Think of the Fibonacci sequence, galaxies, or a nautilus shell.
They inherently suggest organic growth, continuous evolution, and expanding energy.
However, they must be used carefully. If overcomplicated, a spiral can induce feelings of dizziness, confusion, or a loss of control.
And curves.
Curves provide visual relief. They offer flow, grace, and a natural rhythm that guides the human eye smoothly across a layout without jarring stops.
But if curves are not anchored by some underlying grid or structure, they can make a design feel chaotic, unpredictable, or structurally weak.
Let's talk about organic shapes. The blobs, the leaves, the asymmetrical amoebas.
Organic shapes bypass the mechanical brain entirely and speak directly to our evolutionary comfort in nature.
They communicate raw familiarity, ecological harmony, and comfort.
For an environmental sustainability company like our solar startup, organic geometry is an incredibly powerful tool to subconsciously signal a low ecological footprint and a partnership with the Earth,
rather than industrial dominance over it. And finally, symmetry.
Symmetry as a biological hack. The human brain is hardwired to seek out and appreciate symmetry. It's the fastest way to communicate order, balance, and classic idealized beauty.
The profound risk, however, is that absolute perfect symmetry rarely exists in nature.
Therefore, a perfectly symmetrical design can often feel cold, sterile, manufactured, and completely devoid of organic warmth or human creativity.
This is staggering. As a designer, you are literally constructing a subconscious emotional vocabulary before you have even typed a single letter or chosen a font.
You are intellectually mixing the architectural stability of a rectangular grid with the ecological comfort of an organic shape to engineer a highly specific neurochemical response in the viewer.
It is incredibly complex.
Which brings us to the final and frankly often the most brutal and unforgiving phase of the entire design process.
Okay, we are here. We have done the rigorous intellectual work. We've interrogated the client's underlying business flaws.
We've sketched in our private lab, avoiding the Frankenstein monster.
We've abstracted the aerodynamics of dandelion seeds.
We've perfectly mirrored our persona's body language, and we've balanced the psychological geometry of analogous colors.
The conceptual design is a masterpiece on your monitor.
But eventually that file has to leave the safe confines of your software and go out into the harsh, physical, and digital world.
And this is exactly where theoretical dreams turn into pixelated, expensive nightmares.
Welcome to the harsh reality of technical execution. You can have the most conceptually brilliant design in human history, but if you do not strictly plan for the unforgiving technical constraints of print and digital mediums from the very beginning, your concept will physically fail.
The real world doesn't care about your inspiration. It cares about physics and code. Let's break down the physical realm first.
Printing presses are incredibly dumb, massive machines, and they are utterly unforgiving. Walk us through this minefield. What are the absolute non-negotiable physical laws we have to obey before we dare send a file to a commercial printer?
The first and most frequently violated law by beginners is bleed.
Bleed. It sounds violent.
It involves blades, so it is. Bleed is a required 0.125-inch margin of extra artwork that extends completely outside the final intended dimensions of your design.
Why? Because a mechanical printing press cannot physically print ink perfectly to the microscopic edge of a piece of paper. The paper shifts as it moves through the rollers at high speed.
So, you must intentionally print your background colors slightly over the edge. Then, a massive hydraulic guillotine blade comes down and slices off that extra eighth of an inch.
If you fail to include bleed, the slightest millimeter of mechanical shift in that blade will leave your gorgeous dark poster with a glaring, hideous, crooked white border on one edge.
It ruins the illusion entirely.
That alone has ruined millions of dollars of print runs. What's next?
Second is the physics of color mode. Computer monitors emit light, but paper absorbs light. You absolutely cannot send a digital RGB file to a physical printer.
You must convert and build your files in CMYK cyan, magenta, yellow, and key, which is the printing term for black.
CMYK is a subtractive color model. It relies on microscopic dots of physical wet ink overlapping each other on the paper to absorb certain wavelengths of light and reflect others back to your eye.
The vibrant, glowing neon green you see on your backlit screen literally cannot be reproduced by mixing physical CMYK inks.
If you don't design within the CMYK color gamut, your final printed piece will look muddy, dull, and entirely lifeless. Third, file formats. You aren't sending editable working files. You are generating bulletproof, flattened files like high-resolution PDFs, TIFFs, or EPS files.
These lock the data in place so the printer software can't accidentally move your elements around.
And what about typography and images? I've seen some horrific blurry billboards.
That brings us to the fourth law, fonts and resolution. If you use a beautiful, rare, custom font in your design, you must mathematically embed or outline those font files before sending it.
If you don't, the printer's computer will search for a font it doesn't have, panic, and automatically substitute your elegant typography with a default system font like Arial or Courier.
It destroys the design instantly. And regarding images, the physical world demands a minimum resolution of 300 dp dots per inch.
A computer monitor only needs 72 pixels per inch to look sharp. If you rip a photo off a website at 72 dpi and try to print it on a brochure, there isn't enough physical data.
The printer will just stretch those few pixels, resulting in a blurry, jagged, mosaic nightmare. I have to talk about the paper itself, too.
Yes, the fifth constraint, paper stock and printer's marks. You have to intimately understand the chemistry of paper. Uncoated paper is essentially a sponge.
When the press lays down wet ink, the uncoated paper absorbs it deeply. The ink spreads slightly and dries with a darker, softer, muted finish.
Coated paper, like a glossy magazine page, has a clay sealant on it. The ink sits sharply on top of the sealant, resulting in vibrant, crisp, high-contrast images.
You have to adjust your color values based on the absorbency of the paper you choose. Furthermore, you must include technical trim marks on your digital file.
Literal crosshairs that tell the operator exactly where the guillotine blade needs to fall.
And finally, the ultimate technical divide. Vector versus raster.
This is foundational. Vector graphics, typically created in software like Adobe Illustrator, do not use pixels. They are composed of pure mathematical equations, points, lines, and curves mapped on a grid.
Because it is just math. You can scale a vector logo from the size of a postage stamp to the size of an 80-foot highway billboard, and it will remain infinitely, perfectly crisp.
Raster graphics, however, like photographs manipulated in Photoshop, are bound by physical reality. They are made of a fixed, rigid grid of millions of colored squares called pixels.
If you try to enlarge a raster image beyond its original boundaries, the computer has to invent data that isn't there, resulting in severe blurring and pixelation.
A designer must know exactly when to deploy math and when to deploy pixels.
That is an absolute gauntlet of physical constraints. But lest we think that digital designers have it easy, let me counter with the brutal laws of the digital space. Because the internet is not a free-for-all. It has its own strict, invisible architecture that will break your design if you ignore it.
The digital world is infinitely malleable, but incredibly fragile.
Exactly. First and foremost, accessibility. And I want to be clear, this is not just a nice, empathetic idea. In many cases, it is a strict legal requirement.
You absolutely must follow the rigorous guidelines set by organizations like the W3C to ensure that users with visual, auditory, or motor disabilities can actually navigate your design.
If you design a beautiful website, but a blind user screen-reading software cannot parse the hidden text hierarchy, or if you use a light gray font on a white background that colorblind or low-vision users cannot physically read due to low contrast, your design is legally and functionally broken.
You are building public infrastructure, and it must be accessible to the entire public.
Second is the color mode inversion. Unlike the physical print world, digital screens emit light. Therefore, you must operate in RGB red, green, and blue.
This is an additive color model. You are literally mixing beams of colored light together. If you mix 100% red, green, and blue light, you get pure white.
You have access to a massive, vibrant spectrum of glowing colors that physical ink could never dream of achieving.
Third is the balancing act of formats and file size.
Right. In print, file size doesn't matter once it's on paper. On the internet, file size is life or death.
You are constantly balancing visual fidelity against bandwidth and load times.
You use compressed JPGs for complex photographs. You use PNGs when you specifically need a transparent background so the website color shows through.
You use SVGs, which are scalable vector graphics, for crisp icons and logos that take up almost zero bandwidth.
Because the brutal reality of the internet is this. If you upload massive uncompressed files and your beautifully designed website takes 3.5 seconds to load, the analytics prove that the user will abandon the page before they ever even see your work.
Speed is a design constraint.
Exactly. Fourth is the massive headache of interactivity and responsive design. When you design for print, the page is static. When you design for digital, the canvas is constantly changing shape.
A design viewed on a 27-inch desktop monitor is navigated by a user holding a mouse, which has a pixel-perfect, precise cursor.
That exact same design, seconds later, might be viewed on a 6-inch mobile phone screen, navigated by a blunt, imprecise human thumb, while the user is walking.
According to deep research by groups like interaction-design.org, you have to radically alter the size of your buttons, the spacing of your links, and the hierarchy of your menus based on the device.
If you don't proactively design for the fat finger problem on mobile, the user will accidentally tap the wrong link, experience immediate friction, and leave. Your design must be fluid and responsive to the glass it lives behind.
And finally, typography on the web.
You can't just find a crazy obscure font online, slap it into your web design, and assume everyone will see it.
If the user doesn't have that specific font file installed on their own hard drive, their browser will break the design and swap it out.
You have to rely on web-safe fonts or utilize font hosting services referenced by platforms like w3schools.com, which force the user's browser to temporarily download the typography data so your design renders correctly across every device on Earth.
What is absolutely vital for the listener to understand here is that wrestling with these technical constraints, whether it's the physics of CMYK ink absorption or the bandwidth limitations of an SVG file, is not just tedious downstream busy work for a developer to handle.
Understanding that technical execution is a core component of problem solving.
A psychologically perfect, conceptually transcendent design is a complete abject failure if it crashes a smartphone browser or prints with missing fonts and crooked borders.
The technical execution is the bridge that allows your brilliant concept to actually reach the audience's brain. Wow, need to take a breath. We have covered a truly staggering amount of intellectual and technical ground today.
It has been a massive journey.
We started by completely shattering the myth of the intuitive, tortured artist, realizing that a mass percentage of design is pure analytical research.
We learned how to avoid the baby food at a tailgate trap by mastering visual language.
We stepped into the shoes of a consultant, rigorously interrogating the client to find out they needed a direct mail campaign, not a poster.
We retreated to the private sanctuary of the sketchbook to avoid the horror of Frankensteining. We differentiated the broad, cross-disciplinary flavor of inspiration-like bourbon packaging for BBQ sauce from the rigid structural guardrails of direct precedent.
We took a massive detour into the microscopic physics of biomimicry, learning how the aerodynamic mechanisms of a dandelion parachute can solve the kinetic energy problem of dropping an egg.
We learned why we have to act like a bespoke local chef catering to specific demographics rather than a mass-producing McDonald's.
We discussed the absolute necessity of drawing boundary lines to prevent scope creep and how mapping the competitor landscape builds client trust.
We analyzed the aggressive hustle required to engage with trends, like the Smoothie Wolf incident, and how to use data tools like Google Trends and Behance to riff like a jazz musician rather than copying like a parrot.
We broke down the profound subconscious psychology of elements, why healthcare is addicted to blue, how analogous colors create safe differentiation, and how the geometry of shapes like triangles and organic curves dictate emotional responses.
And finally, we faced the brutal, unforgiving physical laws of print bleed, CMYK physics, and vector math, alongside the digital realities of accessibility law, RGB light, and responsive thumb ergonomics.
It is a rigorous, demanding, deeply intellectual discipline. So after all of this, what does this actually mean for you, the listener?
It means that whether you are booting up design software for the first time or you are managing a team of creatives, you are no longer allowed to just make things look pretty.
You are an architect of visual solutions.
Yeah.
You are an engineer of human communication.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to turn over in your mind.
Go for it.
We have spent this entire deep dive establishing that true graphic design is fiercely pragmatic. It is entirely about solving a highly specific problem for a highly specific audience, using the precise cultural trends and technological constraints of this exact moment in time.
Right.
If that is true, does timeless design actually exist? Or is the obsessive pursuit of a timeless logo a fundamental trap? Because if great design is always a perfect, flawless mirror reflecting the exact environment it was created for, perhaps true design isn't meant to live forever. Perhaps the best design is wonderfully, perfectly temporary.
That is an incredible paradox to chew on the next time you find yourself admiring a classic 50-year-old corporate logo. Is it timeless, or has it just survived? Thank you so much for joining us on this massive deep dive. We sincerely hope we have permanently altered how you view the world around you, from the ergonomic, responsive shape of your favorite smartphone apps to the highly calculated, calming shade of analogous green in your dentist's waiting room. Keep observing the invisible architecture of your world. Keep questioning the mechanics behind the aesthetic. We will see you next time.